Wow, Omema by Chandler. I don't know it's Chandler or Chandler, but it got me on my feet, dancing and shaking my head and just taking this. My camera guy was telling me I should take this thing here and just be waving it around because hey, this place was on fire with that beautiful song. I made almost it looks like it should have been the video of the day because leaving the 99, such a profound message. He leaves the 99. The math is not mathing. How can you leave the 99 to go after the one? The math is not adding up. But that's the kind of heights God will do just to fetch you out of that sin and bring you to the fold. But anyway, we are back and it's time for us to have a look at the newspapers to get to know what is happening and to know how to pray as well. So yesterday, we know what was happening. The protests were definitely anticipated for, and they did take place in some parts of the country. And I see pockets of protesters engaged anti-riot police in running battles in central Nairobi throughout the day, disrupting business, travel, and other activities in push for more reforms. But this was not the case in other towns across the country where Kenyans went about their normal business uninterrupted. And this is a story on pages 4, 5, 6, and 7, given plenty of preeminence, definitely. Miss Salima Hussein saying, we are happy with the swearing in of Mr. Joho this morning. We shall use different avenues to seek for a bigger cake in government. And that is on the coastal regions. And I see here the high protests largely flopped in most parts of the country, with youth in Coast, Nyanza, and Western Kenya keeping off the streets following the Ruto-Raila deal. And I see Mr. Odinga, while speaking at the city's toy market on Monday, said the broad-based government would respond to the needs of the protesting youth by improving governance and service delivery to the people. We have given him experts. You will now see things changing, say the ODM party leader. So this is information that was communicated on Monday, which necessarily has been seen to actually calm the situation, and that is areas like in Coast, Nyanza, and also Western, who did not come out in any numbers actually to protest. But of course in Nairobi we had some few wrangles going on, and I see police locked down Nairobi to stop demos. This was what was happening. Cars were not being allowed to enter into the CBD. In fact, they would be turned right before they got to the very entrance of the CBD. All major roads leading into the city center were blocked by police officers. Many did experience this yesterday. A number of people arrested from a nightclub in Nairobi on suspicion of planning to engage in protest. This is actually 20 is that number. And I see here protest here, none there. Still on the same. And I see here still on the page 7, still on the same news, continued from page 6, demonstration and protesters faced off with police in Nairobi and a few other towns. So they were in some areas, but in some areas they were not. And I see very, very disturbing pictures here as well. And the very first one is a woman receiving first aid from journalists on Kimathi Street after she was overwhelmed by tear gas during yesterday's protest. Very sad. And I see business as usual at the Likoni Ferry mainland side in Mombasa yesterday. The Nane protest failed to take off in the city. Elsewhere, Eldoret town residents go about their business yesterday. There were no demonstrations also in Eldoret. I see Oginga Odinga Street in Kisumu yesterday. There were no protests held in the city. But in Nairobi, we did have some protests, and that's a story on page 7. Still covered on the top page. CS bear weight of expectations. Ruto insists on delivery. Both the new and returning ministers face major challenges and scrutiny in their dockets. And this is a story on page 2. I see the new CS, for instance, for education, Julius Ogamba, is walking directly into an imminent strike by teachers that is likely to affect school reopening for the third term. So definitely there's quite a lot. Mr. Kipchumba Murkomen faces a Herculean task in transforming sports in the country. During his vetting, MPs complained the sport is dead and the magic is needed to revive the sector. Of course, Health CS Deborah Barasa is also coming in at a time when the country is facing the threat of monkeypox. So definitely there's quite a lot. These CSs are entering into a season that will require a lot of accountability and work being done. Energy and Petroleum CS or Pio Wandai will also be under the spotlight over the increase of prices of fuel, which has a direct effect on the cost of living, and the issue of high cost of electricity that consumers have been grappling with also awaits the former minority leader. And more on the same you can read on page 2 to know what this new and reappointed CSs are walking into. And page 3, intrigues behind nominees' rejection. Of course, Miss Stella Soy Langat did not make it. And Miss Langat was one of the 3 women who had been proposed for appointment to the cabinet, but it later emerged that she was not from Kericho, but Bomet County. So if you're asking yourself, why didn't she make the cut? What really happened? And you can look at that story on page 3. And but I see here that she has a track record of fighting gender-based violence and illicit brews, rooting for equal education of boys and girls, youth and women empowerment in the society. It was clear from the onset that the committee was hostile to her for reasons we do not understand. And this is Miss Kirui saying. And by press time, efforts to reach Miss Langat for comment had not borne fruit. So a bit of back and forth there, with others feeling that this was a bit unfair from what she has done before. And still on the same, I see someone saying here, I'm so disappointed with the rejection of Stella Soy. Looking at her CV, this is a well-read lady who has done a lot, having risen from the position of district commissioner. She has championed women's empowerment and HIV/AIDS awareness, Miss Kemei said. So you can look at that story on page 3 to read more on the same. Of course, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is all about the protest. So we are going to go directly to the DN2, The Voice, Border Borders bumpy ride. The sector has employed many young Kenyans, but is awash with challenges that portend a generational crisis. Page 4 and 5 of The Voice. Border riders would really find this helpful and also very insightful, and even the rest of us, just to understand. And I see, despite, of course, giving young people the chance to earn a living, the sector has had a bad name. Efforts to train riders to comply with the best practice have largely failed, even as more Kenyans drop out of school. More Kenyans drop out of school to join the industry, limiting their opportunities for career growth. So, and there are so many. I see James Gishiru, who is 25, Michael Mwaura, 25, Hassan Otieno, 34-year-old, Sharif Muhammad, all giving their stories and their testimonies on the same. Boniface Gitengo saying, I was idle at home most of the time. I wanted to work to eke out a living. So I approached my father and he agreed to give me his motorcycle. So it's definitely something that most of the young people are running towards, but then it is being faced by lots and lots of challenges. And that's a story on page 4 and also 5. And just moving on to the county news, is a proposed impeachment law outlines new rules for MCAs. And this is a story on page 18, that's on the counties. And still on the county news, I see vet agencies warn against the abuse of animal drugs by humans. A story on page 18. Let's go to the international news. I see UK rioters thwarted by community unity show. More than 400 people have been arrested since the start of the riot. And this is on racism. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says those rioting face long prison terms. And on the business today, I see blow for farmers as cane prices dip on market glut. Drop from 5,000 shillings to 4,950 shillings per ton. Hands consumers of sugar some relief. And 138 is the price of a kilogram of sugar, down from 180 shillings earlier. And let's go to the back page. Varsity funds applications remain low. Even after the deadline was extended, tens of thousands have yet to submit applications. This is a story on the back page of the Daily Nation. Let's go and look at some sports on page 31. I see it's Gudav versus Chebet in 10,000 meter medal race. Wanyonyi chases 800 meter final shot. A story on page 31. And I see Spain hope to cap dominant summer with Olympic football gold. And page 30, new father, Kibiwot celebrates steeplechase bronze medal. Interesting. And I see here fresh Olympic medalist considers adding Paris to name of his newly born daughter. Interesting. I did my calculations, but relaxed in the last 200 meters and the American took off. This is a story on page 30. Very, very interesting. On still on the same sports pages, I see Highway Butere I regional success at East Africa Games. Kwamdanze and Cheptil reclaim volleyball titles. Oyugi Ogango defend netball crown. A story on page 28. 29 marathon King Kipchoge on the cusp of Olympic history. Kenyan star going for unparalleled third straight gold in a marathon. Ethiopian trio led by Ace Bekele in the mix. And this is a story on page 29. I see 2:09:44 Olympic Games marathon record set by Kenya Samuel Wanjiru at the 2008, and that is in the Beijing Games. And going to the Standard, I see Ruto's team of rivals. I see President Ruto admits to failures and urges servant leadership among 19 cabinet members sworn into office on a day dubbed Nane by Gen Z demonstrators who braced heavy police deployment and barricades to protest against bad governance and demand that they be heard. It's a story on pages 2, 4, 6, and 7, still on what we have touched on the Daily Nation. William Ruto says Kenyans have made their expectations known in bold terms. They have also made their intolerance for failure, corruption, ineptitude equally clear. I want to make it clear my support for your ends if it conflicts with my accountability to them. And how events unfolded, according to the Standard, is business paralyzed, street deserted in Nairobi and parts of the country as Gen Z led Nane protest off to a low start. 2 heavy police deployments and barricades in Nairobi, Nakuru, Mombasa, and Migori protest nerve centers to contain demos. I see an easy calm in Mombasa. Some key towns in Nyanza, North Rift, and Central as protesters fail to turn up. Police raid businessman Jimmy Wanjigi's Modaiga home, accusing him of ferrying demonstrators to Nairobi CBD. A story that is on pages 2, 4, 5, 6, and also 7. And page 3, I see busy weekend for young talents as music festival nears its climax. Thrilling songs and dances expected at the music festivals, and teachers reveal the behind the scenes preparations. I mean, I was part of this music and drama festivals during my time, and they were definitely something. But page 4, of course, what was happening yesterday, Ruto swears in new cabinet amid heightened security in the capital, still going on. And page 5, ODM to top organ meets to replace leaders. Raila Odinga will today chair a meeting of the Central Management Committee. There are reports that he initially pushed for a consensus. And at page 6, of course, it's in Coast in Nyanza, and also what we touched on the Daily Nation as well, where there was an uneasy calm. James Mbuguga, Nakuru protester, saying, I was crossing the road when over 10 policemen surrounded me, believing I was there to mobilize protesters. Very, very sad. I mean, what sort of assumption is that? It's just one person and 10 police officers surrounding him. Very sad. But of course, in Western Kenya, businesses remain closed in Kakamega, Bungoma, and Busia towns, with residents staying away for fear of protests. 19-year-old Wycliffe Kuto called on youth to join the protest in Nairobi, accusing President Ruto of betraying them by reappointing sacked CSs. So there's more and more and more fight being pushed. James Mbogo, a person living with a disability who has been a vocal protester, was injured during his arrest by police along Kenyatta Avenue, saying, I was just crossing the road. Of course, it's the story of James Mbogwa. Really, really sad. That man who is who has a disability, who was injured and being accused of trying to initiate the protest and cite people up to protest, and that's really, really unfortunate. That's a story on page 6. And page 8, will Mwangaza be lucky for the third time in Senate after last ouster? The government was first impeached. The governor, was first impeached in December 2022 and again in October 2023. In both occasions, the Senate voted to save her, and the ball is back on the senator's court. Looking at the sports page, Chebet set for Olympics history as she chases her second gold. A story on page 32 and page 31. I see 4 players to watch in men's football final. Kibiwot knows that thing will look up soon. Kenya's wait for 3,000 meter SC gold medal in as many years goes on. Moroccan El Bakali beats Rooks and Kibiwot to retain the title. That's on the sports, the Daily Nation, and also the Standard. Let's finish up with the Business Daily. Rival dealers weigh buyout of bankrupt SUV maker Mobius. This is a story on the Business Daily. The back page of the Business Daily. What a U.S. economic slowdown will mean for Kenyan investors. Whether internationally or locally focused, a recession in the world's biggest economy brings opportunities for those keen to grab them. And let's look at the last word today. It says every revolutionary idea seems to evoke 3 stages of reaction. They may be summed up by the phrases it's completely impossible, it's possible, but it's not worth doing, and 3, I said it was a good idea all along. This is from Arthur C. Clarke, British science fiction writer. This last word comes at a very good time when we are actually driving for a revolution in our country. I don't know on which side we will be out of the 3 statements. But anyway, thank you so much for staying through all the way to the end of the newspaper review. And you can grab a copy of your favorite. But remember, we give you fresh news updates on Hope FM at the top of every hour. That is 93.3 FM right here in Nairobi. And of course, remember, we also have our own, transmissions in Wajir and also Samburu. So definitely, we are reaching far and wide. You can listen to the news updates as they come at the top of every hour right here on Hope TV. We also have Dira at 7 p.m. and News Watch at 9 p.m. where you get to be informed about what is happening in our country. This helps us to know how to pray, but also to be informed about what is happening. So right about now, I will be looking with you at the video of the day. Then we'll come back and talk about it.